Lots of people making big, big bucks. You and me, babe, I see we're out of love. Well, I heard a voice from a high above. It don't cost a thing just to be in love. We don't have anything but love.
Hi, I'm Gordine McKenzie.
I'm Nancy Nangeroni.
And this is GenderVision. We have a great program for you today. We're going to be talking about public policies, and that's going to include anti-discrimination laws that have gone into effect, and also we'll be talking about hate crime legislation.
And of course, we're going to be talking about public policy with respect to transgender persons, a relatively newly identified social group, but one that has long suffered severe discrimination, serious violence, and significant disadvantaging in our culture. And there's been a movement afoot for more than the last decade, but it's become visible in the last 5 to 10 years. And so we're going to be talking about public policy and legislation aimed at reducing violence against transgender people and at leveling the playing field on behalf of transgender people.
And you know, there are 13 states and also the District of Columbia that have hate crime legislation
as of July
already.
2008.
Yes, as of July 2008, an anti-discrimination policy. And there are well over 100 different municipalities that also have enacted legislation. And I think there's like 39% of the population lives somewhere that has some form of legislation, anti-discrimination legislation. So that's getting near 50%.
Yeah, this kind of legislation is certainly not unheard of. It's becoming accepted. In fact, there was a hearing recently, the last week I think it was, in Congress. It was I forget which committee it was, but there was a congressional hearing around the need for transgender equality legislation, non-discrimination legislation. Transgender people are routinely fired if they are outed or if they come out on the job, or they are routinely relegated to low-level jobs. They face severe glass ceilings and so forth. Transgender youth are discriminated against seriously in education.
Bullied. There's a lot of bullying in the schools, and a lot of kids end up dropping out of school. But that was a historic moment when we actually watched some of the footage for the testimonies, and there was a trans woman that testified who had gotten a job in the Library of Congress who was totally qualified for the job. And when she talked to her supervisor and said she was a trans woman, she lost the job. And that happens way too frequently. 70% of transgender people are unemployed or underemployed.
Yeah, those of us who identify as transgender are all too familiar with the kind of discrimination that transgender people are faced with. Certainly, we've been denigrated for decades in the media. Man in a dress jokes are rampant. And really, it's about, the deeper issue here is really about winning respect in the culture. A person who is transgender, hurting anybody else by being transgender, someone born male who identifies as a woman or who just enjoys wearing women's clothes, isn't hurting anybody else, and is just as capable of doing their job and so forth.
And by the same token, there are many females who transition as well, and there are people who are somewhere in between.
And in the women's movement, there was a great effort to win the right for women, for example, to wear pants.
Bloomers, it was a big thing.
Bloomers?
It was scandalous, yes. When women started wearing bloomers to ride bicycles, everyone thought that it would be the fall of Western civilization as we know it. Yeah, oh, right. It's terrible. But there's been a continual kind of pulling back on anything that gives people a type of gender freedom. But we've made a lot of strides, and we're going to talk with Gunnar Scott, who's the executive director of the Massachusetts Transgender Political Coalition, later in the show, who's going to really talk about a lot of these issues in detail.
That's right, and we'll focus on issues of gender identity and expression. We'll talk about public policy, we'll talk about legislation, and much more. So this will be, I think this will be a really eye-opening experience, or an eye-opening program for a lot of folks, and it will hopefully be a good reference point for everyone out there who's concerned about transgender equality and rights. In the meantime, though, I think before we go to Gunnar, don't we have, isn't it time for us to check in with our good friend?
Yeah, I think we want to talk to the bird with the word, and here today we've got the bird with the word, who I think Raving Raven said that birds were the Einsteins in your backyard, and I'm not sure where Raven got that quote, but
yeah,
so
I think that was last time, right?
Last show. That's what Raven said.
Well, we'll see what Raven has for us today.
Okay, here we go to the bird with the word.
We'll be right back.
Raving Raven.
I'm the bird with the word.
Hey, Raven.
Hey, Nancy, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Well, I've been thinking a lot.
Uh-oh, it's our Einstein from the backyard?
That's right.
And what have you been thinking about?
I've been thinking about how people use the term natural when they talk about gender or they talk about sexuality.
Natural. Yeah, sometimes they say things are unnatural if they don't like them.
They're wrong, Nancy.
So tell me more about that. What do you mean? How do you know they're wrong? When if they say like cross-dressing is unnatural or changing sex is unnatural, well, how do we know they're wrong?
Because they're referring to the animal world, Nancy, and I want to tell you about the diversity in the animal world and the big range around gender today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, do you know that there are some animals that are female that become male, and some male animals that become female?
Really?
Yeah.
You mean humans aren't the only ones?
No, Nancy. You're in the company of shrimp, oysters, and coral reef fish.
Really?
Yeah.
They all change sex.
They do, and some of them change just one time, and then some of them go back and forth.
Well, once is enough for me.
Ha!
All right. So wow. So when people say that's unnatural, so like we were all raised to believe that animals just come in heterosexual pairs, just males and females that bond together and all of that sort of stuff, and that
they told us that Noah's Ark story, but they don't know who they really had on the Ark. Ha ha!
Okay, we're back now, and we have our guest Gunnar Scott here in the studio with us. Gunnar is the director of the Massachusetts Transgender Political Coalition. He's a member of the Massachusetts Commission on Gay, Lesbian, Bi, and Transgender Youth, and he's also a member of the Board of Advisors of the National Center for Transgender Equality. Gunnar, welcome to GenderVision.
Thank you both for having me.
And Gunnar's a long-time gender activist for many years.
Yeah, since 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, about 1998.
Yeah,
Great.
Good for you. And you were there for the founding, or shortly after the founding of MTPC?
I was I am one of the founding members. The organization was founded by Jennifer Levi, who is an attorney at GLAD, and Cole Thaler, who is an attorney at Lambda Legal.
So what is it? So what is MTPC? Let's talk about what is MTPC.
What is MTPC?
Yeah.
We are a transgender organization.
It's just a bunch of crazy trannies who are saying, we want more.
Well, we don't like to use the word
not.
trannies,
No.
actually.
Yeah.
The organization is a political organization, and our main goal is to end gender identity, gender expression discrimination.